Franklin Delano Floyd was an American murderer, rapist, and death row inmate. He was convicted of the 1989 murder of Cheryl Ann Camesso and the 1994 kidnapping of 6-year-old Michael Anthony Hughes, whom he falsely claimed was his son. Floyd was also the prime suspect in the 1990 hit-and-run death of his second wife, Sharon Marshall. Years later, investigators discovered that Sharon Marshall was actually Suzanne Marie Sevakis, a child whom Floyd had kidnapped and raised as his daughter before forcing her into a life of abuse and exploitation. Franklin Floyd's early life and crimes. Floyd was born in Barnesville, Georgia, the youngest of 5 children. His early life was marked by tragedy and instability. His father, an alcoholic, died when Floyd was 1 year old, leaving his mother struggling to provide for the family. Eventually, Floyd and his siblings were placed in the Georgia Baptist Children's Home, where he suffered severe abuse at the hands of both staff and other children. This trauma, coupled with Floyd's growing instability, set the stage for his future criminal behavior. By 16, Floyd was already engaging in criminal activities. In 1960, he broke into a Sears store to steal a gun and was shot by police in the process. Over the years, he was convicted of multiple crimes, including kidnapping and molesting a 4-year-old girl in 1962. While serving a prison sentence, he endured further abuse and made multiple escape attempts. By the time he was released in 1972, he had already built a long rap sheet of violent and sexually motivated offenses. The kidnapping of Suzanne Marie Sevakis. In 1974, under the alias Brandon Williams, Floyd met Sandra Brandenburg, a struggling mother of 4 children, including Suzanne. He quickly manipulated her into marriage and convinced her to move to Texas with him. Not long after, Sandra was sentenced to 30 days in jail for passing bad checks. When she was released, she discovered that Floyd had disappeared with all 4 children. 2 of her daughters, Allison and Amy, were later found in the care of a church-run social services program. Her youngest son, Philip, had been placed for adoption. However, Susan was never found, at least not under her real name. Floyd had taken Suzanne and raised her as his daughter, giving her new identities over the years. As she grew older, he forced her into a life of abuse, control, and sexual exploitation. Despite this, Susan excelled academically, graduating near the top of her class in 1986 under the alias Sharon Marshall. She earned a full scholarship to Georgia Tech to study aerospace engineering. But Floyd, controlling and abusive, forced her to abandon her dreams. Instead, he moved her to Tampa, Florida, where she was coerced into working as an exotic dancer. Suzanne became pregnant twice while under Floyd's control. Her first child was placed for adoption, while her second, Michael Anthony Hughes, was born in 1988. By 1989, Floyd had escalated his control, marrying Suzanne under the names Clarence Marcus Hughes and Tanya Dawn Tablock. That same year, one of Suzanne's co-workers, Cheryl Ann Camesso, went missing after an altercation with Floyd. Years later, her skeletal remains were found, and photographic evidence linked Floyd to her brutal murder. If you are liking this video, please subscribe. The mysterious death of Suzanne Sevakis. By 1990, Susan had reached a breaking point. She had secretly been planning to escape Floyd with her son and start a new life. However, before she could, she was found lying on the side of an Oklahoma highway, severely injured. Witnesses believed she had been struck in a hit-and-run while walking back from a store. She was rushed to a hospital but succumbed to her injuries soon after. Floyd arrived at the hospital the next day, claiming he had been asleep when she left to get groceries. His story was suspicious, but without direct evidence, he was not charged. Many believe Floyd was responsible for her death, either by orchestrating the hit-and-run or by inflicting the injuries himself. However, her death was officially ruled accidental. The kidnapping and murder of Michael Anthony Hughes. Following Suzanne's death, Floyd placed Michael in foster care and left the state. The child, who had developmental delays, began thriving in a loving foster home. However, Floyd, desperate to reclaim control, attempted to regain custody. When his request was denied, he took matters into his own hands. On September 12, 1994, Floyd stormed into Michael's school in Choctaw, Oklahoma, armed with a gun. He forced the school principal to take him to Michael's classroom, then kidnapped the boy before abandoning the principal, handcuffed to a tree. Floyd fled with Michael, and the child was never seen again. 2 months later, Floyd was arrested in Kentucky, but Michael was missing. For years, his fate remained a mystery. Finally, in a 2014 FBI interview, Floyd admitted to killing Michael on the same day he kidnapped him, shooting him twice in the head and disposing of his body along Interstate 35. A search of the area yielded no remains, leading authorities to believe wild animals may have scavenged the body. The murder of Cheryl Ann Camesso and Floyd's conviction. In 1995, a mechanic in Kansas discovered an envelope stuffed behind the gas tank of a truck that had once belonged to Floyd. Inside were 97 disturbing photographs, including images of a woman bound and severely beaten. The photos were traced to Cheryl Ann Camesso, the dancer who had vanished in 1989. Her remains were identified shortly after, and an autopsy confirmed she had been brutally beaten and shot twice in the head. Investigators found further disturbing images in the truck, photos documenting Floyd's sexual abuse of Suzanne Sevakis from early childhood. This evidence, along with witness testimonies, led to Floyd's conviction for Camesso's murder. He was sentenced to death in 2002, final years in death. While on death row, Floyd finally confessed to Michael's murder, but he never showed any remorse for his crimes. On January 23, 2023, at the age of 79, Franklin Delano Floyd died in prison. The legacy of Suzanne Marie Sevakis. For decades, Suzanne's true identity remained unknown. It wasn't until 2014, 24 years after her death, that DNA testing confirmed she was actually Suzanne Marie Sevakis, the daughter of a woman to whom Floyd had been briefly married. The revelation brought some closure to her surviving siblings and mother, but it also underscored the horrors she endured. Suzanne's tragic story is a chilling testament to the depravity of Franklin Delano Floyd. Despite the years of abuse and control, she showed resilience, intelligence, and kindness, qualities that made her more than just a victim, but a person whose stolen potential will never be forgotten. If you have watched till here, let us know in the comments section what you think and on which topic do you want our next video to be on.